Paper is me, and I've put this one in the schedule today, in some ways, a bit selfishly, as a bit of a challenge to give myself something new to learn. I am by no means an expert on this subject at all, and in some ways it's quite daunting standing in front of a number of individuals in this room who I know absolutely are. So please do, if you've got any feedback from at the end, or if you'd like to inform me a bit more, that would be really helpful. So, AI, ethics, and higher education. Artificial intelligence is increasingly integrated into various sectors, including higher education, presenting both opportunities and ethical challenges. As AI technologies evolve, their application in educational contexts, ranging from administrative automation to personalized learning systems, has the potential to significantly enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of academic institutions. However, this rapid integration raises critical ethical considerations that must be addressed to ensure the responsible and equitable use of AI. Issues such as data privacy, algorithmic bias, and the implications for academic integrity and autonomy necessitate a thorough examination. This paper explores the intersection of AI, ethics, and higher education, providing a comprehensive analysis of benefits, risks, and ethical imperatives associated with AI adoption in academia, particular to the creative industries. Even writing this paper has presented a number of different perspectives and logical-based problems. Should I use AI to help with the copy? This seemed wrong on one level, as the need to remain unbiased was important, but also it's easy to appear a troglodyte when trying to navigate the subject without engaging with the technology itself. I've done my best, and in fact, the first paragraph that I just read out was generated by ChatGPT. This was its first attempt, and I think it was fairly acceptable introduction to a paper without more comprehensive training. Furthermore, this paper could have been entirely generated by generative AI. If you'd like to see what that looks like, there's a QR code on the final slide, which you can read AI's version of the paper that I'm presenting. So, the ethics of AI in higher education. AI ethics can be described as Leslie puts it, a set of values, principles, and techniques that employ widely accepted standards of right and wrong to guide moral conduct in the development and use of AI technologies. In that sense, the merit of AI ethics is twofold in that they encourage developers to harness the power of AI to effect positive change, while it also helps them to navigate the risk. So what are the big issues? I didn't want to talk today specifically about the cursory subjects which have already been covered extensively, whether we should allow students to use AI in their assessments, or whether we should be teaching students how to engage with AI tools in their workflows. We know we should. While the argument is far from over, it's clear that Pandora's box is firmly open. Interestingly, though, I've recently taken part in forums on AI, both for domestic UK and international university groups, and what surprised me the most is the huge difference in engagement from one provider to another. More specifically, at a recent Guild HE Teaching and Learning Forum, the difference between adoption became extremely apparent. The disparity is perhaps guided by a number of other endemic issues in HE today, and while not the focus of this paper, include, but are not limited to, age and tenure of academics in public or red brick universities, an exponential rise in digital literacy of young adults, a lack of sector policy despite a growing wealth of research, and a conservative attitude to education which still prevails in a number of areas. 8 of the 24 Russell Group institutions banned the use of ChatGPT and generative AI use when it first emerged in public in late 22, citing breaches of academic integrity, student conduct breach, and while many have since reversed their decision, the stigma created likely still affects providers today. There is yet to be a clear set of guidance on how institutions might adopt AI for good practice and in what ways. The Education AI Landscape report reveals that a significant 11% of institutions haven't even begun strategizing about AI integration yet. Interestingly, though, since the initial response, Russell Group institutions have since developed a series of principles and policies and provide extensive guidance and resources on AI across their consortium. Researchers are also far from unanimous on the benefits of AI in their area of the sector. In a survey of more than 3,000 academics by IOP Publishing, the publishing arm of UK's Institute of Physics, just 29% of respondents felt generative AI would improve peer review. Perhaps the most partisan of views shared in this study was that it was a destructive tool for mankind. Conversely, though, a recent study examined the frequency of certain words in academic writing, such as commendable, meticulously, intricate, and found that they became far more common after the launch of ChatGPT. So much so that 1% of all journal articles published in 2023 may well have contained AI-generated text. Of course, this raises a wider conundrum when considering peer-informed research altogether, given that one of the central tenets that holds up scholarly writing is the ability for a researcher to gather literature, analyze, paraphrase, and reconstruct to support an argument, frame a methodology, or build a history. Is this not what generative AI does? Is this not what the tools are for? We'll talk about this further in the paper. The European Commission's Artificial Intelligence Act, which was adopted on the 13th of March 2024, this year, to regulate AI systems development and deployment, provides valuable insights into navigating the ethical landscape. One of the Act's main objectives is to ensure AI systems' compliance with fundamental rights, including privacy, non-discrimination, and safety. Despite the many fine words and intentions, it's only when the legislation is passed by all member states that that AI Act becomes effective. And even then, we need to ensure its function and relevance and keep it up to date. One element of the legislative package is that the use of AI must be declared, in that we must be able to see when AI is being used. And this is a consideration for our institute and for how we work in the creative industries as well. It is commendable, but there are already an AI arms race going on effectively between different technologies that create new content and the technology that must be able to identify when AI is used and ensure correct declaration is becoming more and more difficult. There is, of course, a danger that while we argue in our respective areas about the value of AI, its transparent use in the low-level risk areas, we obscure the bigger picture. While educators have been arguing about whether it's appropriate for a student to use ChatGPT to inform an essay or check grammar or syntax, and without a doubt, providing value no less groundbreaking than a calculator was to mathematics, the pace of development has grown exponentially to a point where generative AI is having a profound effect in the industries we are preparing our students for. In short, is it not absurd that we are stuck on how to build rule sets for teaching, learning, and assessment in respect to generative AI in courses we have sold to students where the very technologies we seek to circumscribe are drastically changing employability chances for graduates? The real ethical question then becomes, how transparent should we be with our students about this, and how do we continue to market, sell, and teach courses in a moral and honest way? AI and the creative industries. I'm just going to zoom on a little bit. While it's fair to say that all industries are being affected by AI, the creative industries are particular in this regard. AI in the creative industries is not new. Music producers, filmmakers, game professionals have been using AI tools for a long time now. Generative AI has found its way into many situations as an effective workflow tool. In the creative industries particularly, however, concern is given perhaps higher value due to things like intellectual property, identity, skills, competencies, which have been challenged by the introduction of AI in the workplace. Notions of authenticity become increasingly blurred here too, particularly thinking about emotive subjects like songwriting, where the individual is ascribed value through communities of peers and consumers. How does this change when AI is involved? And more important, how do we recognize this in our curricula and teaching? Make.it, an AI-powered startup funded by venture capital, Spotify executives, and a notable YouTube celebrity, is one approachable use case for AI's potential in music. But it's telling that a technology once deemed science fiction can now so casually do the job of a singer, producer, audio engineer, and label executive right from your phone. Interestingly, just before presenting today, Matt Russell showed me something that he has been working on, and it's actually mind-blowing. I would implore all of you to have a chat to Matt about this. Thanks, Ollie. Martin Clancy, a researcher at the Centre for the Digital Humanities at Trinity College in Dublin, and editor of Artificial Intelligence and Music Ecosystem, said the difference between this wave of AI and prior transformative tech is a sheer adoptive speed. He says there used to be a time lag between the invention and social adoption of tech. How long was it from the turntable being invented to DJ Kool Herc? 100 years, he said. It took 30 years for samplers to become affordable consumer items. AI is different because of the scale. The cost is cheap. So money is being poured in, and all the tech is stacking on top of itself. We're not only getting unintended consequences, but unintended designs from that. There was a recent AI music survey, and in this survey, 17.3% surveyed producers think negatively about AI in music production. Only 17.3%. However, almost half were neutral. 36.8% of surveyed music producers already use AI tools. 30% are planning to try to use tools soon. Almost a third of music producers fear AI music tools could lead to less originality. AI mixing and mastering tools are currently the most popular, with 28% of surveyed producers already using them. 70% of surveyed producers think that AI music generators could replace human music producers in the future, at least to some extent. That's something for us to talk about. So, how do we, as an institution, address the issues? Firstly, we acknowledge the changing demographic of digital literacies. Intel's AI for Youth program is one of many global initiatives that's helping to drive digital literacy of our next generations. Higher education courses must acknowledge the exponential curve of digital literacy and the effect this will have on students entering HE environments year on year. While students are now certainly early adopters and becoming very savvy with it, students of the future will have had an entire formative education experience informed by it. ACM, for example, is launching an AI Creative Foundation course which will become part of a larger emerging technologies skills suite. We believe that AI technology competencies are essential for any creative, and that all higher education establishments have a duty of care to provide these tools as they become more relevant to the sector. Transparency. The declaration of use is essential, particularly in education spaces. An AI disclaimer use from staff and students is a step in the right direction, but furthermore to that, allowing students to discuss their use of tools without being stigmatized from staff or peers may well increase the creative quality of a student's output. Employing the latest technology is essential. HEI central service departments should employ individuals with expertise in digital literacy and empower faculty leads through remission time to seek out and embed the latest digital tech tools. The curriculum is extremely important. We need to ensure that learning, teaching, and assessment focuses on project and portfolio-based learning, ensuring that as technology develops, the structures of educational programs do not need to change and instead move in line with these developments. This allows HEIs to leverage course structures which are hyper-agile, responsive, and speak to the needs of industries. We focus on authentic and continual formative assessment. Moving away from traditional assessment modalities is essential. All assessment should mirror industry requirements and be informed by current issues where possible. Assessment should also focus on continual assessment, output, and portfolio. Rote Q&A is no longer relevant. We don't need it. Though problematically, it's still utilized in formative education. Students will need assistance in transitioning to these assessment modalities, and that is also a responsibility of higher education institutions. We need to be considerate of digital neocolonialism and data singularity. Hugely important to our access and participation plans, EDI strategies and similar is avoiding digital neocolonialism. At once, we should be aware of access to technologies and the potential for unevenness in digital literacy, and thus achievement as we look to empower more students to use digital technologies. Secondly, we must show students how to navigate the digital handicaps produced by an uneven access potential for digital monopolies in certain sectors. Decolonizing the data that LLMs draw from is essential too. Take, for example, the history of Western music, which favors the grand composers and artists of the past 250 years, often eschewing contributions of racial, temporal, gender, and locational outliers that don't make for a simple narrative. Digital records, texts, and histories inform AI's understanding of this. We must be wary of it and teach students to interrogate histories and narratives which are partisan in nature. Being frank in marketing materials. As ethical providers, we should acknowledge the state of the workplace that our graduates expect to be in. This could mean publishing data on industry growth and recession in regards to jobs, and having honest conversations with students and parents during recruitment cycles to ensure they are aware of the risks associated with employability in their chosen areas created by emerging technologies. And finally, we should lobby collectively as part of HE Inc. to shape regulation. Teach students about the emerging legislation and actively encourage them to critically challenge this. The now emerging EU Artificial Intelligence Act is case in point here. We should work within the sector collaboratively through AI community spaces like the ones I mentioned before, and also through our own forums. In conclusion, I hope this paper, which has sort of turned into a semi-manifesto, has at very least caused you to think about your work as educators and as practitioners and how important the topic is. It's not meant to be in any way an apocalyptic address, and I'd invite each and every one of you to think about the possibilities that technologies offers. To finish, as Nikki Verd writes in her book, Disrupt Yourself or Be Disrupted, schools should be at the forefront of innovation and technological progress, not a place for preserving obsolete learning methods and clinging on to archaic practices that are no longer relevant in the world we live in. Higher education has much potential and work to do in this. Thank you very much. Any questions? Denise? This is where I actually have to pretend like I know what I'm talking about, which is not the case.
Right. One of the things that you mentioned about classical music just triggered a thought. It's taken 7 years to get the exhibition at the British Library on 500 years of black music. There is a role in this way for a curator, because a lot of popular music and black music doesn't have a number in the National Sound Archive, so therefore does not exist. So from an AI world, we are going to miss out the acknowledgement and the inclusion of that massive pile of unrecorded, unnumbered tracks. So I think where we look at opportunities through AI, we certainly need to be aware that I was talking to Michael Riley, who had worked on that exhibition, and what he had discovered is that there is a real role for curating popular and black music. And I think that needs to be acknowledged here in relation to the AI agenda, because AI will only find what's available, numbered, and that means the privilege and the structured bias will win. And we can't let that happen at ACM.
And I agree, but I think as well as that, it's probably our responsibility then to make sure that as we use and initiate these tools, that we're feeding those tools all of that information that would otherwise be lost, to avoid the same problem that we've done in written literature for hundreds and hundreds of years, which is coloured histories which don't reflect the truth.
And that's a kind of new role for, I mean, my PhD is in ethnomusicology. It's a role for ethnomusicology to work with government classifying popular music, black music, and, you know, and not, oh, I thought black music came over in the 1950s. 500 years of black music. And we need to make sure that in education, higher education is championing a true heritage, not one that just happens not to be numbered.
One more.
Go on.
Hi there, Tom. Thank you for your presentation today. My question is, thinking about how government is now and how they took quite a long time to regulate things like, say, streaming, which I guess is still a work in progress. What do you think could be some of the implications of the delayed in regulations to AI regarding music industry?
It's a very, very good question. I think the delay in regulation could mean that there are certain things that, as a practitioner in the creative industries, that you you're afforded, so intellectual property rights, your ability to have your kind of workplace safeguarded, all these sorts of things, they are potentially at risk until we start talking about it frankly. There'll be a lot of different perspectives on this. It's whether it is affecting already. Again, like I say, Matt showed me just before this presentation something which is absolutely outstanding, which guaranteed would have an effect on a number of creative outputs. But it's how we move with the sector to find new ways of engaging with the technology, and I think that's what legislation has to do. So as people don't get turned away from the creative industries, they don't go, well, it's over, basically. It's new ways of engaging with it to enhance practice, not to overwrite it, I think. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The next paper is from Matt Peters. Matt, would you like to come up? Thank you very much. Where are you, Matt? I'll leave you to. I'm sorry. No worries.
All right, hello everybody. I'm Matt Peters. I'm a senior lecturer at ACM on the Birmingham campus, and today I'll be talking about artistic innovation and sustainability through multidisciplinary collaborations, focusing on two contrasting case studies from my history. So for almost 25 years, collaboration has been at the heart of my artistic journey. Early on in my career, I began composing for web installations and experimental theater projects, which has led to an ongoing passion for collaborating with artists of other disciplines. In this presentation, I will discuss two contrasting multidisciplinary collaborations as case studies, ranging from one of my first major multidisciplinary works as well as one of my most recent. When I moved to New York City in 2002, I discovered a burgeoning laptop artist scene. Supported by an active community of digital musicians, video artists, and technologists, the early 2000s in New York City was marked by a wealth of experimentation. At the heart of the scene was a weekly open mic night for laptop artists called Share in the East Village. For Star Wars fans, it was not too dissimilar to Mos Eisley Spaceport for experimental digital artists. In addition to being a platform for any electronic musician or video artist to plug in and jam in real time with others, it became the unofficial hub for knowledge exchange and networking for both experienced artists and those completely new to the scene alike. This community was essential to my own journey in learning and exploring new technologies, and was where I met the majority of my collaborative partners in New York. In many ways, it felt like the Wild Wild West. Live performance technologies on laptops were relatively new, especially with the advent of the G4 PowerBook. Was it the MacBook? I don't think it was the MacBook yet. I think it was just the PowerBook. The G3 allowed for some musical presentations in live time, but for video, it really started blossoming with the G4, and that happened around that time. Experimentation was absolutely plentiful. Most club events had live background visuals as standard, but equally, there were artists experimenting with live motion capture, real-time interaction with online contributors in theaters, as well as generative art. However, there quickly became a disconnect. Video artists creating visuals independent of the music performed, and vice versa. The excitement of the technological possibilities sometimes trumped utilizing them to create a coherent experience, which is what leads us to the Psychasthenia Society. Writer and satirist John Keith Brunel created the Psychasthenia Society in 2003 in New York City. Originally conceived as a solo show by Brunel, after a few successful one-off performances, he secured a monthly residency at the Galapagos Art Space in Brooklyn. It was referred to in the press as storytelling meets sampling culture which was quite on the nose, as the way he created his shows was he ripped still images from 1960s and 70s B-movies, reordered the stills, and created his own stories with them, and then paired the presentation in PowerPoint with music, often by indie electronic artists in the local scene. His stories delved into absurdist fantasy whilst being full of social and political satire. The early days of his residency at Galapagos showcased a rotation of laptop musicians and video artists in between his stories, mostly from New York, but quickly the word spread, and his shows became so popular that touring artists often asked to perform while they were in town. After a number of performances on his shows, as well as seeing our work in other venues, John asked video artist Dan Vatsky and myself to join as permanent members. We took on his existing repertoire and proceeded to write a number of pieces together. So taking his one-man show and incorporating live video manipulation as well as coherent soundtracks to go with the piece. I have a couple examples. The first is a trailer. Eventually we received a month-long residency for our show, The Nano Love Report, and this is the trailer that we made, juxtaposing a few brief clips from various stories.
Hey, Mike, have you heard of something called psychasthenia?
I thought maybe it was about the free-floating dread and anxiety that saturate our culture. You fools! This is all a plot by the Republicans.
It's a condition in which one's sense of self and one's surroundings become confused.
Now, I understand that doesn't quite give you the exact experience, and unfortunately, it's really difficult to divide one of these stories into a little bit of a smaller bite-size experience. However, I did source a recording of one of the shorter stories to give you an idea of the experience of the Psychasthenia Society.
Tyler and Marlo. They are psychic anarchists in love. Using their precognitive and empathic superpowers to strike fearsome blows against the forces of globalization. Combining their skills with careful planning to stage daring heists against Halliburton, ExxonMobil, Citibank, and that really irritating guy who lives in their building and works as a middle manager for Fox News. Tyler and Marla have known each other for years. They met as children in a secret government paranormal youth experiment. They've long since gone underground, and today only a highly trained specialist would recognize them as anything but law-abiding citizens. This cloak of normalcy gives them the cover they need to liberate cash from corporate scum with impunity. But perhaps such a love was not meant to last. Lately, during jobs, Marla has been engaging in hot precog fantasies about civilian passers-by. And Tyler, the empath, always knows exactly what Marla is thinking. This kid is going to look really hot when he turns 16. Oh, so this guy's going to be at the fetish party in Williamsburg next weekend. The situation rears its head during a job. They argue about whether they each should be dating other psychic anarchists. Tyler finds it very difficult to aim at a pursuing police vehicle while having this discussion. Later, at the hideout, Marla thinks back on the good times. Tyler and Marla decide upon extreme reconciliation. They go upstate to devote 7 days to exhausting, dangerous, psychic neural bonding. But the exacting process takes its toll. They mend their love, but expire in each other's arms. And so the legend of Tyler and Marla lives on. It's an inspiration and a warning to psychic anarchists everywhere.
Apologies, I wasn't able to volume match that quite as well as I'd hoped, but hopefully you got the idea. So what was the impact of this? At a time when digital storytelling was in its infancy, the Psychasthenia Society refined the experimental nature of live video and music collaboration into a cohesive narrative. In addition to selling out the month-long residency at the Collective Unconscious in Tribeca for our show, The Nanolive Report, the show also received rave reviews and continued to perform in galleries and art spaces all over New York City. Unfortunately, when I moved to the UK in 2006, we ceased to work together as a trio. If back then we'd had access to the broadband speeds we have today, we likely would have explored continuing our collaboration, including a live stream performance. So that brings me to a more recent multidisciplinary collaboration, All About the Fight. All About the Fight is a piece that pioneered the innovation of grime dance theater while honoring the skill, culture, and spirit of boxing. Drawing on extensive ethnographic training with boxing, dance, and music communities, the piece embarks upon empowering storytelling through a fusion of diverse dance genres and a live grime MC. In partnership with Bright Star Boxing, the dancers trained as boxers for 18 months, and there were several exchanges with the company's respective youth divisions. All About the Fight is a piece that pioneered the innovation of, it also developed an emerging grime artist program, and I have an extended trailer for this one as well.
The big night. Are you ready for a battle? Challenge me, mess up your dreams like Andy Ruiz, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Hitting with a left, right, then another left. Never would have let a guy batter me. I've been putting in work for so long, I hardly see my family. So come challenge me. I fight to win, I don't fight to lose. This life I live, yeah, it's the life I choose. This life's a journey with all types of rules. We can't throw the towel in when this life gets cruel. I fight to win, I don't fight to lose. This life I live, yeah, it's the life I choose. This life's a journey with all types of rules. We can't throw the towel in when this life gets cruel. Blood, sweat, tears, bare pain. Being in the ring's what I've worked hard for, but being in the ring is not the real fight, it's how you got there in the first place. Training hardcore, this morning training hard for. I've wanted to quit so many times, but winning is what I've worked hard for. Champions ain't made in the ring, they're merely recognised there. And there's a crowd when you're out in a party, but when you're in the ring, it's lonely and quiet there. Yeah, and it's a fact that you get what you put in. Life's hard when your back's on the ropes. Blood, sweat and tears, many years that I put in. Skip on the rhythm and I master the good ropes. Master my craft, now I'm in the ring, putting on a masterclass. Breadwinner and I got a lot of mouths to feed, and boxing's in my jeans like Wrangler. But the fight is won or lost, far away from witness. Behind the lines or up in the gym or back at the crib where your kids live. Yeah.
I don't feel like I never put enough.
What is journey with all types of rules. We can't throw the towel in when this life gets cruel. I fight to win, I don't fight to lose. This life I live, yeah, it's the life I choose. This life's a journey with all types of rules. We can't throw the towel in when this life gets cruel. The fight within is giving in's no option. The towel gets thrown in early, and then their trainer stops them. But that's life in boxing, and my mindset's Justin must win. So when I enter the ring, it's go time. Left jab, right hook, uppercut, chin. I'll break man down, make man wanna quit in the first round. Too much energy, I put too much work in my craft to be losing now. When I've found my rhythm, I'm cruising now. Winning them all, I ain't losing round. Defense so good that they can't score points when I counter Amanda before falling down.
So what was this impact? Touring since 2022, the West Midlands Tour in 2022 and the East Midlands Tour in 2023 has engaged over 10,000 audience members to date. It's performed at the finals boxing match at the Birmingham Commonwealth Games, commissioned to create several mass participation events for the Commonwealth Games as well as Birmingham Festival 23, and there were several spin-off and outreach programs that have engaged local boxers, dancers, and grime artists while on tour and involved them collaboratively in performances. So why is this important? Beyond the benefits of artistic innovation and the socio-political power of bringing communities together, more and more of these types of collaborations will be essential for surviving in the creative industries. From 2010 to 2015, the budget for the Department of Culture, Media, and Sport reduced by $300 million. From 2010 to 2023, the grant and aid and lottery money for the arts was trimmed by $178 million, and during that same time period, the ACE budget, the Arts Council of England budget, was trimmed by 30%. With reports ranging from 50,000 to 100,000 tracks uploaded to streaming services every day, and the ongoing cost of living crisis, it's more important than ever to stand out from the crowd and diversify artistic portfolios. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Matt. Does anybody have any questions for Matt?
Is that working? Yeah. If not answered already, Matt, was there any symbiotic benefit that came out of the fusing of creative filmmaking, boxing, and dancing? Was there any subsequent crossover of understanding, and do you feel it developed culturally?
100%. That's what I was referring to when I spoke about some of the spin-off events, where, especially in the youth programs, both the boxing youth programs and the dance youth programs collaborated with each other, both to have essentially a cultural exchange, finding that there's a lot more similarities between their practices than there were differences, but also the boxers trained as dancers and the dancers trained as boxers for further understanding, and then used that collaboration to inform and help create the curtain closer piece for the end of the performance.
Can I have one more round of applause for Matt, please? And then can I invite Cornelia and Maya to come up? So next we've got Cornelia and Maya, who are presenting a paper on understanding the impact of ethnically diverse backgrounds on student experience in higher education. So, get their presentation. Good to go.
Thank you. Oh. Are we on? No. No.
Yeah, it should be.
Can you hear me now? Oh, there we go. Hi, everyone. So we are in the middle of this study, but we wanted to present some interim findings today. So we've been looking at the impact of ethnically diverse backgrounds of our students in higher education. And what led to this was a particular incident where we saw policy, a university policy that seemed correct. You can move to the next slide for me. Correct, clear. If it was held up against the quality team, there was nothing wrong with it. But it wasn't able to be accepted by our student because we weren't able to take into account their lived experience in light of how that policy was applied. So that led us to thinking, is there something that we're missing and need to be picking up about the university experience for our students from ethnically diverse backgrounds? And a poignant quote that came from one of our first meetings was a student saying, "We're angry and they don't understand why we're angry." So we delved into a qualitative study to be able to hear stories, give people space to tell their experience and learn from that. So Maya will take us through the method.
So we had a number of research questions that we wanted to look at, and essentially we wanted to understand the impact on belonging, achievement and well-being of our ethnically diverse students whilst in higher education. We also wanted to see the role of the cultural capital and social support, as well as the institutional policies and those impacts on our students. So we used a qualitative research design in order to get as much content and feedback from our students as possible. We sent out a range of SMSs, emails. We had posters up. We were asking the student relations officers to approach students to get as many people to come in for an interview or a focus group as possible. And we ended up phoning some students and just asking them if they wanted to take part, which seemed to be really effective in getting them to actually sit down and have these conversations with us.
So we are still delving into all of the information we've received, but we've picked up about 4 interim themes, which we'll dig into a little bit today. The first one of those is justification of their experience. For a lot of our students, the first stance that most of them take is trying to find any other reason for the experience that they've had besides it being racism. So it will usually be, maybe it was my age, maybe it was the immaturity of the people around me, maybe they've never encountered someone like me, or for some students trying to say, actually, maybe I just need to man up, it's all in my head. And after they've gone through that first stage of justification of any other reason besides my race or racism, we then move into a retrospective or a reflective application of, actually, maybe that was racist and maybe it wasn't okay. And usually that happens alongside peer support. So you'll find that when students that are ethnically diverse engage with other students that have had a similar experience, that's when they feel safe to look back and say, oh yeah, actually, I had that and maybe that wasn't all right. And from there, you then get some students who they don't have an option. They don't have an option to think of it as anything else as probably racism. So anything that happens, it's almost a constant lens. Wherever they are, whether they're in the classroom, whether they're in a shared space, the constant lens, and a quote from one of our students is, things may not always be due to race, but I always question if that's the case, because that's their lived experience. Next one from Maya, barriers.
So another key theme that we've noticed quite a lot of is the different barriers to education. And I just wanted to focus on these few just for now, as Cornelia mentioned, we are only in the interim part of our study. But one of the major things is this sense of equality versus equity. It's very easy, as you can see in the image, to give everybody the same box and expect them all to succeed in the exact same way. But what we found with our students, and they're very passionate about, is the fact that they're not all coming in the same space. For some students, it's taken them so much longer, whether it's in funding, in years. Sometimes it's just mentally taking them so much more to get to the point of being at that desk, being in the classrooms, where other students didn't necessarily have that same experience. So we asked our students, what is it that they feel like they could do with having extra support-wise coming into university? And for them, that looks like more targeted support programs, mentorships, scholarships, specifically designed academic support. So we'd look into having our students sit down and really tell us where they would feel they'd get the most support, and then trying to implement that as much as possible into our curriculum and giving them that support that they require. Another key theme was the access and awareness of funding opportunities. I think, unfortunately, a lot of institutions have the idea that students come in just knowing about student finance and expecting that their sixth forms and their colleges would have done them justice and explained to them what the process is and what these grants or funding that they can get in addition, and unfortunately that's not the case. And it's even more so not the case that our ethnically diverse students don't have that knowledge of what specific grants or scholarships may be available specifically to them in areas where they aren't as populated. Again, there's another theme of the lack of diversity in staffing. This is a major thing, and we'll come into this in a bit more detail in our other themes, but our students really struggled with the fact that there is little to no reflective diversity in the staffing compared to the student population. And they're not just asking for staffing in terms of race, but they're looking at culture and religion and language. And one key point is this mindset, which we'll come into a bit more in a bit. But it's not just about hitting that quota, and it's not just about making sure that there's, X amount of black staff and X amount of Asian staff, but really incorporating that into the key spaces where our students are going to see them the most. Because without that diversity, our students have found that they have got a lack of sense of belonging, really. But moving back to Cornelia for the next theme.
So one of the most interesting themes has been looking at what does success look like for our ethnically diverse students. And we've asked that question, how do you define success? To date, no one has said success at university is getting their degree. Not one. The kinds of things that they have said is being celebrated and accepted, having learned everything I wanted to, and getting my ideas off the ground. And we'll talk about it a bit more in terms of our next steps. We do want to test if that is a creative student thing. Maybe because we're learning creative subjects, success looks different for all of our students. We're going to test that with a control group, but currently with our ethnically diverse students, no one has said it looks like getting a degree. So then we dug into what are some of those contributing factors to success? What would help you achieve those things that would make you successful? Mentoring and representation was right there at the top. And in terms of the mentoring and representation, it is someone helping you to see a space for yourself. And when Maya touched on the representation, for one of our students, they'd said, it doesn't need to be someone who looks like me, it's just someone who gets it. Gets that I'm going through a different experience and is helping me to understand that there's a space for me and a space for that. So mentoring and representation helping to reach their success. And another really important part was that social impact that Maya said we were looking at. Talking about family and social groups had a huge impact on what success looks like. And we found that there's the same result, but two routes to get there. So we've had a group of students who've come from social backgrounds, families that have been very much championing, studying a creative industry degree, studying, to get what their success is. And for those students, they've wanted to prove that they can do that because they want to honor the support they've had from their family. And so the journey to get to success has been a bit more joyful, and their mental health has been a bit more, stable in that process. But we've then had the other side who've come from backgrounds and families who perhaps don't celebrate creative industries as a degree. And so, again, they've had the success of, I've got to prove to my family that it's worth it. I've got to prove that I can make it. But their journey to success has been a lot more fraught with stress and mental health concerns along the way.
So moving on to the fourth key theme, I hope you can read these all. These are some direct quotes from our interviews with students. It's important to note that each of these quotes are taken from individual students, so they're all might be saying the same thing, but they're different people. So navigating uncertainty kind of has two paths, I would say. We're looking at students who aren't really understanding what the process would be in terms of reporting if they have been, if they've experienced racism in the classroom by a student, and what the process would be. Unfortunately, it's not as clear as it could be. Like, we have safeguarding flowcharts that students know how to follow, and there's a procedure. There's currently no procedure in place, so students don't know what to do. You also have the other path where students are like, even if I do report it, even if I do tell someone, are they going to take me seriously? Or am I going to have to jump through multiple hoops even just to be heard? A lot of our students felt like they, you know, ACM as an institution just didn't care enough to make it a priority when they did finally, you know, get the courage to speak up. One of the key, I think, interviews that we had with the student was him questioning when the person that's in the highest point of power in the classroom is also the perpetrator of racism. Where do I go? What do I do? How do I not just sit there and suffer in silence? A lot of our students have said that, you know, it's not necessarily, as Cornelia said, having someone who looks exactly like me, but it's having people who are willing to understand, who are willing to be educated and have these conversations in order to make the changes so that they feel comfortable in approaching them. So I think, you know, what we really want to look at is where we can be taking these issues and, you know, putting in a process so students and staff alike know the procedure in terms of following. So then, speaking of which, moving on to our next steps, we have a short-term, mid-term and long-term plan. So our short-term plan, we are going to do a full thematic analysis into the interviews that we've done. So we obviously did a bunch of interviews across the 3 campuses, and we've got a lot of data to go through. We'll generate some codes and then some wider themes, which we plan will reflect what we've spoken about today. We're then going to take on some additional information. We want to send out some questionnaires, as Cornelia mentioned, to the entire student body in order to get a nice control group and a nicer understanding of, as Cornelia said, is it being in the creative industries, or is it being an ethnically diverse student, or is it a bit of both? So we'll have a lot of comparison and application following that. Mid-term plan-wise, we would like to replicate this study in other higher educational institutions. Similarly, in independent providers, because they're small and it's so much easier to get the data, and those are often the institutions that don't fully have the support as much as the largest do because, you know, funding. And we want to look at comparisons across the other creative institutions to see if it's similar there as well.
So the long-term plan, based on some of the interim themes we've discussed, we're thinking is going to fit into 4 areas. The first being a student toolkit. I think it's poignant what Denise mentioned earlier about it's taken years to kind of see a change. And so we know that this is an ongoing process for a number of students. So building enough so that while students are navigating uncertainty, whilst we still haven't fixed an issue, they've got support. And that's things like building in the methods of speaking up. How do I respond? Things like stress management, how they build a community, self-belief. So there's some things that are intangible, that are internal, and there's some things that will be quite practical as well. The next will be the the university policy and training. So thinking about how we operate as institutions. Are we missing policies? Are we missing processes? Is there clear flowcharts where if I feel I have experienced a situation, how do I respond to that? And also building training that allows us to be in spaces where we can be uncomfortable, but then learn from that and grow from that as an institution. How we respond to students, how we support those in understanding the differences between equality and equity. Looking at how we can support before students arrive. So looking at that external support system, where we're seeing the impact of support making the route to success stressful or less stressful. What are the tools that we can give to those that are supporting students going into university? And also the final piece of the pie, what do we need to do to inform government policy on a bigger scale, where we're looking at things like suicide prevention that has to come in place and prevent. Do we have a similar approach to responding to racism and universities' requirements and expectations around that? So thanks so much for listening. That's where we are, open to any questions. Oh, I'll keep. Oh, yeah.
First of all, I'd just like to say thank you so much for putting together this amazing piece of research. It's definitely well needed. I just wanted to talk a little bit about foundation in particular, because this really hits home with some of the students that we get through that programme. And in particular, the students that are most disadvantaged are those from non-white backgrounds, because traditionally when they come through the school system and education, they're underrepresented and they're not supported. And that means that when they come to us on foundation, they are already met with challenges where they don't feel like they are good enough, or they are constantly having to prove themselves. So part of our work really is trying to encourage an environment where they can learn in those safe spaces and kind of recognise what skills they need, and almost kind of undoing the work that has been done in education. But I think one thing that we need to do across the board in particular is integrate more training on diversity that comes from different lived experiences, rather than a PowerPoint presentation on a day's worth of training that is delivered by white people. And that is our responsibility, to challenge ourselves in terms of our own internalised misogyny, racism, discrimination, and we should all be doing that together collectively and sharing resources from other lived experiences and backgrounds. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for putting this together and highlighting it today.
Thanks so much, Amy. Do you know, we've had 2 interviews that have spoken directly into what you've said. And we had one interview from a student who said, I refuse to ever let my ethnicity hold me back. And he was English as a second language and had come over and really always wanted to study guitar, and spoke about the additional time and effort he would have to put in, because there were phrases that he didn't understand, terminology that maybe he knew, but he knew it in a different language. And so he put that onus on himself of, I have to now study twice as hard to be able to understand that. But then the joy he experienced when he was recognized within a classroom of the skills that he did already have. So when there was a moment when it was music that was more rhythmic and focused on what he'd learned, and he was celebrated for that, his sense of belonging shifted. So I think alongside sometimes undoing, it's also celebrating what people have come with and how does that diversity work. And we saw that with another student who was, again, English as a second language, had come over. And if you've ever done ESL abroad, we teach English that none of us use over here. So he'd arrived and didn't know how to use any of it. But he talked about how his experience was absolutely transformed by a tutor who understood a bit about his culture. And when I asked him, what difference did that make? He said, well, it changed me from being someone who would have just gone to class, left, not asked anything, to someone who was willing to ask for support, get feedback on my work. So there's something about the lived experience and being willing to hear it is being in somebody's space and being willing to be changed by that. So yeah, absolutely.
We're going to have a slight change of schedule now. So if I can get... Did you want to ask Cornelia and Maya any questions directly? Yeah? We're going to get up and do a bit of a skit, Denise, Kane and I, in a second anyway.
First of all, ladies, this is, massively important and clearly very impactful work. And I think in addition to celebrating the success you're having and the courage that's been taken as an institution, just to listen, because it does take courage to listen, I've learned over years. I just wanted to add in, because it's a little known fact that the genesis, the beginning of our Rap MC degree, of which we have a significant number of incredibly talented human beings on program now, actually came about when we were in Guildford at one of the celebrations at one of our graduations, and there was a young boy, a 16, 17-year-old, who was rapping on Move On Up, Motown classic, and I was so in awe and awe-inspired by his performance, as a fan of music, first and foremost, that I forgot where I was, and instead of following the tractor beam to the lectern, peeled left and went and gave him a hug. Just said that was astonishing. And he leant in my ear and he said, "It's a shame I can't stay here." To which I said, "Sorry, what?" And he's a diploma student. And he said, "I don't want to rap on Move On Up. It's not really where I want to be. I want to be original, authentic." He's the reason. His name's Malachi. He's about 7 foot tall now. And, you know, he's an incredible human being. And he was literally, to have the courage to say that, which could have been, you know, seen differently, viewed differently, but I realized that we owed him the respect and the courage to listen. 3 years later, he came back to challenge me. You know, we got on well about Black Lives Matter. And one of his questions to me was, in response to what are you doing as an institution, was, how would you feel if I asked your daughter out? And I said, I was kind of rocked back slightly, and I said, it depends how you asked her, and everyone has to come through me first, and we know each other. But when I reflected on that, and I was speaking to my colleagues, said, where did that come from? And it was sort of, well, he trusts you. You know, it wouldn't have come from that. And it was a real pivot on my brain. And I would encourage us, if we haven't, to talk to our students, our Rap MC students. And one of the things that resonated very strongly with me when you were speaking, Maya and Cornelia, were about those two roots, and those that perhaps haven't had that celebratory background in family. And the thing that I noticed about our Rap MC students, really strongly supported by Chaz and Carl Gordon, was that they felt like family, and kind of in its own way, to my mind, I mean, they were burning more brightly than the sun, to the point where their performance was incredible. And they then came across and said, we want to integrate more. And most recently, where we had Carl Gordon working with Rachel from business to Rap MC, so we're buddying up our tutors to get them collaborating and passing on the best of what they have. And in one of Rachel's classes, she just told me tacitly, you know, we get together that way, that one of the students said, why is the rap students in here in this entrepreneur bit? And it was like, you'll see. And now they're working together. And so I guess what I'm saying is, in that learning by doing ethos that ACM has, that's not just for the students. It's for us as management, it's for us as tutors. I mean, we have nearly 100 students on that program. They are among the most entrepreneurial human beings I've ever had the pleasure to meet. They want to learn about brands, business, they want to make money, they're hungry for that, and they want to collaborate. Who knew? And Carl Gordon, and kudos to him, said, if you just relax off and help us re-architect the pedagogy around the experience, the stepped experience, it will go better, and it has. So I think as an institution, we've listened, and we continue to do so. And that's where we're listening right at the heart of it, you know, to our students. So I'd be fascinated to see where this goes, and actually, in particular, what I perceive to be the family feel, that community aspect that they clearly have, these young students, how that has had an impact, how their own relationships has potentially overturned or addressed the perception of background and family, which, as you say rightly, can be such a challenge. But I just wanted to note that, you know, probably the most impactful thing that's ever been said to me at any point in my life that I can remember, apart from you're going to be a father, perhaps that was one, to be fair, was when one of the students said, if I wasn't holding this, it could be a knife. And it's probably the strongest impact that's been had. And the idea and the changes in community and the beacon that person's become, both within his ACM community and beyond, is just incredible. So we are seeing incredible movements and moments to be able to understand it and frame it and get some collective understanding by listening, by simply listening and being courageous to do so. I think it's incredible. But that's all I wanted to add. I think it's, we seem to do it tacitly, we seem to do it in pockets. Pulling it together and understand it is incredibly important. So I thank you for the great work that you're doing. I think it's worth another round of applause for sure, right? Right, we're scatting this one.
Do we sing just the three of us?
We can do.
Anyone know that?
I've got the voice for it today. Me again. This lady, who I'm very privileged and proud to call my friend, Dr. Denise Stanley, and I met somewhere around 5 years ago, probably in an Egg and Spoon cafe, Dirty Greasy Spoon cafe, probably. I don't know, is it ACM?
I think it was Coat.
Okay,
We're being posh.
Fine. So my route up through education was very non-traditional, being undiagnosed dyslexic and being told you're a bit rubbish at spelling, and it was in the old days, so there was no internet, there was no spell checker. I was just told you were kind of 4 out of 10, do something differently, and I had to really fight with that. I wanted education, it didn't want me. We're both very much working class, both from our council backgrounds, and we saw something and something sparked. And I tell you where it was for me. I couldn't understand how in this day and age, in this world, with all the challenges that there are, the regulations would, in HE, in higher education, after not allow a student to trail across 2 trimesters 60 credits, and after 2 resets, you're out, academically terminated with debt. And I was appalled by that and was trying to figure out a way to address it. And in conversation with Denise, who was well into many years beyond ideating, creating frameworks for assessing and verifying skills and embodied knowledge and learned skills in areas of vocational practice, so not education, informal learning, we say communities of informal learning. And so we saw between us a bridge where if we bridge this together, maybe the professional practice within informal learners and that within formal education didn't need to have so much ocean between them. That maybe there could be bridges for young men and women of all ages, and particularly as we look forwards now to the lifelong learner entitlement. There are millions, or maybe if not hundreds of thousands of people walking around with a third of a degree, but with that cloud over them, they didn't finish. There were so many that dropped out. So I desired to see 2 things, which I asked for Denise's help. One was, could there be a way that we could maybe really address this problem where people aren't quite equipped for the academia and rigour of level 4, the first year of a degree, and that's where a lot of disengagement, attrition and fallout happens. Is there something that we could do? Because there is a causal link between, no doubt, academic erosion and mental welfare, and I've seen the worst extremes of people who don't feel that they can stay. So for all of those reasons, I wanted to address it. And so, Denise, take it away from 5 years ago when we met, and what did we do and where has it brought us to today? And then on to Tom to tell us how we're taking that forward.
Okay, so basically the organisation that I set up in 2016 is called CLOC, which is Collaborative Learning Open Curriculum Kit, which means you can change the curriculum because it's open, but the process is collaborative learning. So when I saw the extent of the level 4 people in all institutions that leave because they can't manage to transfer from school or college into higher education because they come from families like me. So part of my story is I've got an MBA, a PhD, a first-class Bachelor of Science. When I got my first-class honours degree, I spoke to my mother and I said, I've got a first. And she said, is that good? Because there was no context. Now, if you're coming from that non-traditional background, you don't know how to play the game of higher education. It's meaningless. You don't have the context. You don't have a parent at home who understands what you're doing and even why you're doing it. Although if you're doing law or accountancy, some of them can understand. So that's, yeah. Yeah, so basically, CLOC is a way of working in communities, not education, and workplaces and enterprises, and mapping the skills they've already got and helping them fill the gaps. And so when we were having this conversation, I thought, why don't we run a boot camp, right? Because CLOC runs in boot camps. We have people, they come in, map their skills against the framework, and that framework is based on the National Qualifications Framework in Europe, also in Scotland. So we know how to do that map. And also I've written a lot of higher education programs over the last 40 years. So I know how that bit works. So I got the CLOC team, who are all practitioners, professionals, sector experts, not academics, come in and we're going to work this out. And they went, you've got to be joking. Because suddenly, 2 modules, all the learning outcomes, they're learning in a weekend. And they've got to show the evidence that they've met the learning outcomes. So we mixed all the learning outcomes of the whole curriculum, because every student had a different 2 modules. So it's highly complex. We did it face to face. I said, we need the electric theatre, we need recording studios, we need rehearsal space, we need to do it in the theatre, so we've got a big common space so people can understand what we're doing. So through that process, I'll fast forward. There was a certain person in this institution who paid for the people from Birmingham to come to London to stay in a hotel to participate in this, alongside the London and the Guildford ones. So this was a phenomenal experience for everybody involved. When the students had got an industry brief, it's very similar to the new programme, you'll notice, there was an industry brief that they had to do, and they had to be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, give up all of that. If you want to succeed, you're on the verge of being academically terminated, this is your last chance saloon. And they came, and then one student on the first session just went, I'm going to fail every time now. And I went, that's not really the desired result, because they had such a fabulous time collaborating with each other, playing with people, playing instruments, writing music, writing a song, recording it, working as a producer. It was absolute chaos in some ways and absolutely brilliant in the other. It was the creative industries being supported by people who work in the creative industries. So that was the first session. We then refined it, we then went through the process of looking at what happened. So obviously I don't work for ACM anymore, but the last number was over 280 young people had been saved from being academically terminated. And I looked at the outcomes 2 years later, and some of them got firsts. And they would have left with fail stamped on their head, a year of debt and nothing to show for it. So that programme, I'm now going to pass over to Tom, because it then went into the mainstream of what ACM does.
Just before you do this, this is incredible, because these young men and women just had life get in the way. You know, families, we know about the brutality of COVID, but this was before that. And they were absolutely worthy of support, but there is, as I say, such a causal link between academic erosion and personal mental welfare, and it's addressed, you know, all of that. But very quickly, I know we're against time, the next thing that we did about building these bridges from informal learners in communities of professional practice and bridging them into education. I keep thinking of Frank because it's such an incredible story. So can you please just share that one with everybody before we pass to Tom?
So after doing that, Tom will give us the latest version of what that runs now. But we also wanted to look at, well, if we can join it at level 4 and it works there, why aren't we going to join it at Masters? And when I joined ACM, they didn't have a Masters programme. Right? We've got a Masters programme that actually is an integrated Masters programme, and part of that design, which I was in writing that design, was that the first module of the Masters should be a professional practice framework. And we've got people in the room who did that first year. Wayne over there is one of those. And so that process enabled us to put a clock route, in other words, a non-formal route into a Masters, where the learning outcomes of that first 60 credits I wrote so it could work for clock and it could work for higher education. And through that, we had a story of a guy who left school at age 10, who was a clock sector expert. His name was Frank Sweeney, and he won't mind me sharing the information. He is a fantastic human being, and he learned all his skills through carnival production, theatre director, running charities in local neighbourhoods. And he tried to do a Middlesex Masters, which Middlesex ran, called Professional Practice, and he couldn't cope with it because it was too academic. In the Masters that ACM has, we have an applied research project, which means it's what you do, what can you do? And he worked on a dictionary of the masks from Africa to the Caribbean, that journey that now is available for anyone who is doing carnival. And he graduated in August at the graduation ceremony last year with a master's, and he left school at 10. That's why I do what I do, for that to happen. That's happened across the board, but the one in ACM that has done that, and I'll pass to, I could carry on forever, but I'll pass to Tom. Tom, over to
Let's
you.
give Denise a round of applause.
Very difficult to follow Denise, certainly with that level of passion. What I can talk about is what we do now at ACM, and I think from all of the good work that Denise has helped us with over the past few years, it's very easy now to say that we have a robust set of systems in place, obviously led by Ben as well, with assessments where students don't have to fall through the cracks anymore. If students are failing, if they are trailing, it's not just a case of letting them go or they get academically terminated. So step one for us was that, making sure that ultimately all students had the ability to interact with education on their own terms and not in prescribed manners that sort of have prevailed for hundreds of years for no other reason. Secondly to that, we're continuing to work with Clock on a number of new initiatives. This is where effectively we've piloted some new ways of bringing industry practicing professionals into our programs through non-formal routes. This is not only into the start of programs, but also into the different levels of a program. We've just had a few students start on our level 5 program who come from non-traditional education backgrounds, which is absolutely brilliant. And these individuals are just absolutely incredible. They're lovely, lovely people. And that's across all of our programs, level 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I think it's quite an exciting time for us, what we're doing, and it's just a really nice to be part of something that is upending what has traditionally been a very kind of cold and prescriptive way of engaging with education.
I think this is it. You look at access and participation and widening access and participation, and there are parameters to meet and there are frameworks within it. This is doing it on the ground, you know, in the most sincere and authentic way to give genuine routes and possible bridges into formal education from informal modes and communities of practice. And in and of itself, with the work that Denise has done, it's just foundational because it really does enable a person working to actually have recognised with professional award what skills and embodied knowledge they've got and they're actually doing that they've just learned to do. So in and of itself, even with no bridge, which doesn't have to be walked to formal education, it gives a whole new complexion on personal value and sense of value in the workplace where, to be honest, more than 50% of everything you're ever going to need to know is going to be learned. It won't be learned in uni. Anyway, thank you very much, Tom, and thanks, Denise, and thanks, everybody. Have a great
One more round of applause for Denise and Kane, please. Thank you.
Thanks for the update.
Brilliant. Jenny, can I bring you up for your presentation now? Thank you. Do you want to go straight in with your laptop? Yeah. There you go. Thank you. Thank you for humouring that. having it.
We're just
It was doing this earlier, actually. Do you mind if I try this port? Oh. It's trying to do something. There we go.
There we go.
I don't know why, but for some reason. Yeah, I'll go that side for you.
Try that one in there.
It was, for some reason, it's the same.
Brilliant. Okay. Brilliant. Okay. Hi, everyone. Right, I think I'm mostly going to show you a few film clips of some of the work that I produce. I run a small arts organisation called Rosetta Life. Our work began, quite similar to Matthew Peters, actually, in terms of digital storytelling. We began as a collective of artists who just felt that the power of the arts and the interdisciplinary arts and collaboration to bring people's stories and their lived experiences to mass audiences for public engagement and for well-being was really very, very powerful. And actually just being back here in Birmingham at the moment, I remember one of our very early commissions was from the West Midlands Strategic Health Authority, who wanted to engage with us as artists to get Birmingham talking about really difficult subjects. And we worked with the Birmingham Rep and the CBSO, we worked with filmmaking and digital storytelling to engage the public as part of their sort of public health agenda, getting people to talk about difficult things like end-of-life care, conversations about death and dying. And we still find now, actually, you know, when public organisations are quite challenged on a problem, they do quite often turn to us as artists to see if we can creative problem solve with them. And just last summer, I was commissioned by Wiltshire Council to run a big engagement programme to better understand the experiences and needs and gaps in services for carers across the county. And I think the arts, especially different art forms working together, is very powerful for sort of creative problem solving, storytelling, and giving communities the confidence through taking part in the arts to actually then be able to tell their stories. And of course, as filmmakers, dancers, set designers, animators, we're able to, I guess, gild and embellish people's stories. So, you know, they are confident in sharing them. We are able to dress the stage, and we are able to create music videos and performances that people can take part in. So that's what we do. We, as I said, work across creative health predominantly. So our funding is sort of, local authority commissions. We work with the NHS. We work with university research, and our funding comes from that. And of course, annually from Arts Council England. We work with people living with loss, displacement, or life-altering illness. We work across the UK and internationally. I think I've just touched on this idea of co-producing work with communities and the power of arts in public engagement. The arts, of course, gives people the confidence to speak up and to share their stories. The creative presentations, whether it's a public installation or a dance show or a music video that goes viral, of course, has the power to change perceptions, public perceptions. And something that we do is evidence the work. So we will work with a community of people to co-produce, co-design something, and then we will seek to evidence that work, and then we look for funding on how that particular program can roll out. So at the moment, one of our projects is called The Heart of Care. We've been working with carers in Kingston, we've been working with Bristol Black carers, we've been working with a network of carers in the Northeast, and together they created an artwork. They worked with composers, choreographers, poets, and decided where they wanted this artwork shared. So as you can see here, the artwork being projected onto the town hall, and Matthew Peters actually did the sound production on this particular project for us. So lots of artists and a community of people working together. And then of course, you know, it's very powerful because you have the local politicians, you have the people who are commissioning carer services, you have the mayor, and you have the media turning up. So you're really able to sort of make an immediate impact, not just on the lives of the people who've taken part, who feel like they've been heard, seen, and they've gained new creative skills and confidence in the process, but I think politically as well, you know, you can make quite an impact. So that's one of our programs at the moment, working across the country with unpaid carers whose work is often invisible. It's a completely unpaid labour force propping up a lot of this country. The burden's often falling on women, and we're not really valuing it or talking about it as we should be. So the Carers programme, the Heart of Care, is one of our programmes. Another one of our programmes at the moment is Brain Odysseys. So this began as a performance programme with people who'd experienced a stroke or a brain injury. So we worked at the National Hospital for Neurology and Neuroscience, and together with the clinicians and with the stroke survivors and with musicians and dancers and filmmakers, we started to design a programme. The programme has developed. We've been part of the last 4 years, we've been part of the world's largest ever research programme into the impact and scalability of arts in health. And we have graduates of the programme, ambassadors, now in Bristol, Wickham, Reading, across London. We have about 150 people who have gained confidence and skills through performing. The programme has been evidenced to improve cognition, mobility, self-esteem, and of course the power of performance at the end of the 12 weeks. Somebody arrives as a stroke survivor, having lost their, often their movement and their speech and their self-esteem, and by the end they go on this journey with a very intense rehearsal period, a whole new group of people, lots of different artists. They're encouraged to move, sing, write, and share their stories. And at the end, they're performing their new self, their post-stroke new self on a stage in front of people. And it's been a very powerful programme. We had to move it online completely in COVID, which ended up in the production of an online opera involving about 150 people. You can imagine I was getting sent voice recordings, images, video clips of people dancing, and then we had to pull it all together to create this online performance when obviously all the theatres were closed. So here are some of the Brain and Stroke Odysseys ambassadors last year. There's Eunice there dancing, one of the members, and Jen, who came to us after her car accident that she had at 25, thought her life was over, and she always talks about just completely finding a new way to live and now wanting to teach other people how to live. And she really does put it all down to the power of the arts and being engaged in the arts. So last year, they performed at Camden Roundhouse, Barbican, Greenwood Theatre, but they've also toured the country. I'll show you a little clip of one of their tours. So they worked with choreographer Ben Duke, and give you a little taster of one of the pieces. If you can.
Now there's metal in my leg. It's sore and I'm limping. All my bones and my muscles are aching constantly. There's a pharmacy in my system. it's raining, tears of anguish and strife, and I can't cope, and I can't cope. Sometimes I just can't cope. That's why I dream able-bodied. I dream able-bodied. I dream able-bodied. Yes, I do. I shook it. What's wrong? 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 I shook it.
So everybody involves, as I said, you know, their poems become songs, and then they perform their own words, and they have sessions in singing and movement, and we devise and co-produce everything together. Like, all our work is developed in that way. So of course we moved things online, and we created online performances and films. As I mentioned, we're theatre makers, dancers, poets, and filmmakers. So we've always recorded everything, and technology has run through everything we've done. And we're quite interested at the moment, actually, as well in AI and developing something. I think it was Pauline, one of the ambassadors that you saw dancing in that piece, whether we could actually develop some kind of AI stroke survivor that can work with people who've just experienced their stroke and develop poetry and interact and be there, because actually, you know, they're active constantly on the WhatsApp group, and that connection and that creating together is so important. So that, you know, we'd love to develop an AI app called Pauline, if, you know, anybody knows how to do that. Do join us. We've also, so this gentleman here, Chris, and this lady here, Elizabeth, are Reading stroke ambassadors. And something that was really important to them was improving the hospital environment. I think Elizabeth actually said to me, when I was in hospital after my stroke, you know, I forgot what the colour green looked like. You know, I forgot what sunshine felt like. So it's a big project that we're doing at the moment, and you can see there, Chris. He was a rower, and then he was a rowing instructor. And after his stroke, and when he joined us, you know, we encourage people to talk and create about things that are important to them. And the river was really important to him. And we ended up taking a 360 camera out onto the river, and then taking the 360 film of the river and the poems and songs as the soundtrack back into the hospital wards. And we are now working with the University of Reading biomedical engineers to explore haptics. Can we create something that gives you the journey down the river and the poems and the music, but also the ability to touch and feel the river and the plants and give the sensation of rowing. So University of Reading biomedical engineers, UCL, we're working with the neurological and the rehab team there. University of Plymouth, we're working with the Institute of Digital Art and Technology, so those people making the environments in Unity and Unreal, and people that have those skills. Working, of course, with the lived experience ambassadors, because it's by them, with them, and for people with lived experience of life-altering illness. So yeah, we do a lot of big research programs in that way as well. And the other thing that we're doing there is AR in hospital wards. So this idea of bedside planting, being able to plant something and then actually seeing the tree grow and change your environment in the ward too. So that's something else that we're doing. While I'm on technology, this is our international program with young people. Again, this started as a young people's hospice project. So we connected young people actually in hospices, some here, Acorns Hospice, if you're local and you know Acorns in West Midlands, with hospices in South Africa. And many, many years ago, their work developed. They wrote songs together. We had musicians working with them. At the time, it was Sandy Tom, Jarvis Cocker, Roots Maneuver, and they developed this collection of songs, which became the Song Rooms, an online collection of songs made by young people across the world. And it was a resource available to, children's hospital environments and hospices everywhere. Over the years, this then developed, ending with, I think, 2018, a very, very large concert at the Albert Hall, where the international partners were actually being Skyped in, before Zoom, Skyped in on big screens. We felt that was, it wasn't a very democratic experience, though all of the partners had worked together to create something. Actually, the experience was very, very different to have people in this country in a grand concert hall and the international partners being Skyped in. So then we looked at 360 filmmaking and immersive domes. So in the last couple of years, I've become a bit of an immersive dome expert. And we thought it would be a great way to actually be able to walk into the environments of these young people's lives, really. So we did send 360 cameras out to 14 partners internationally, apart from Gaza, where we were unable to get anything across the border. So we did find somebody there to work with the young people and do the filming. Obviously, in the last 6 months, I'd say 60% of the people that I worked on this project with last year in Gaza have died in the conflict. So I did want to show you that clip, actually, because I did promise them that I would get this piece of work shared. And, I have been taking an inflatable dome around the country, so you're not going to get the full immersive experience, but I'd love to show you a piece of their work that they did together. And the score for this was, their lyrics from poems, from poetry exchanges. We taught them how to use the cameras. They went round and filmed what was important to them. And Jocelyn Pook created the score, and she did release it. So if you want to have a look, it's on her Spotify. If you don't know Jocelyn Pook, she's BAFTA award-winning composer. I think she composed for Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut, and most recently the Akram Khan's Jungle Book. But yeah, do check her out. Is it going to work? Here we go.
My home is my centre, a frosty heather, the green and purple of a future, the golden hour of home.
My home is my centre, a frosty heather, the green and purple of a future, the golden hour of home. حبه يقبع في كل قلب ولزهرة الخلنج التي تحمل المستقبل الأخضر الوردي ولقضاء ساعة ذهبية في وطني.
My home is my center, a frosty heather, the green and purple of the future, the golden of home, the golden of home, the golden In my mind there is a picture of a green, peaceful homeland, and a golden sun caresses our hearts with warmth and tenderness. I will rise like a butterfly and enjoy the taste of freedom. One day everything will be alright.
Everything will be alright one day. We shall wake up to the calm breeze and find the birds soaring to the high sky and see the ships sailing wherever they desire. Then we smile, a smile that rejoices the millions, and our eyes will sparkle with a gleam. Our hearts will fly with no wings and no shackles. We'll sleep overwhelmed with peace. Everything will be alright one day. Everything will be alright one day.
Well, that just gives you a taste. I don't know if you could hear it from there, but the volume was okay. So that's it. We have, see, if you are interested, we have hundreds and hundreds of videos. As I mentioned, this is touring at the moment. If you wanted to come and see it in a full dome, we'll be showing it in July in Plymouth. I think that was the inflatable dome I took to Croydon a few weeks ago. You know, everything we do is about collaboration, and we work with lots and lots of different venues. We work with museums, we work with people, organisations. We're always looking to have, you know, conversations and hear people's ideas. So if this is interesting for you, do get in touch with us, and you can visit our website. And as I mentioned, we've got hundreds of videos on there if you'd like to have a look.
Thank you, Jennie. Does anybody have any questions for Jennie? I have one. I didn't know that you, particularly with that last one, with the a taste. What was it called? Something of home. The video that you shared.
Golden Hour of Home.
The Golden Hour of Home. I didn't know that that's the kind of thing that you did. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Are you doing anything else like that at the minute?
Yes. So that one, we, as I said, different countries partnered with each other. So that one, it was Gaza and a group of girls living with sort of anxiety, really, on a kind of, a sort of arts program for supporting mental health and well-being. And they collaborated. It was just amazing, that kind of peer-to-peer thing, and us as artists just being able to give them the tools and the cameras and the training, but, you know, all the words and the collaboration coming from them. And I just remember, the girls in Gaza just being so positive, and the girls in Scotland being so nervous and so anxious, and like, I don't want to be on camera, I don't want to sing.
Did they set up all the camera placement and decide on what was going to be recorded?
Yes, so they were storyboarding everything, and then we taught them about stitch lines and, standing 2 meters away from the camera. So that was that collaboration. We worked with a group, a choir in Damascus, which was the picture that you saw was kind of the physical impacts of conflict there in Damascus. So they partnered with a group of young people in Oxfordshire. We had the Winnell Rock School partnering with a group in Zimbabwe. We had a hospice in Leicester partnering with a hospice in South Africa. And together, they created this 360 film. And the next project is called Place for Hope. So from that project emerged some youth leaders who, for them wanted to develop the next project to look at climate health and climate change. So they're creating 4 pieces. At the moment, they're developing one on water. So, but we've got 18 international partners for that one. So it's an ongoing project. It's quite difficult to fund the international work. It's
Is it all done through charitable donation, or do you have any sort of income streams that help to drive the business?
And we've got a collaboration at the moment. We've just put in a bid to British Council, working with an arts health programme in Nigeria, where they're really interested. They've been doing a little bit of stuff with immersive storytelling, but they're really keen, but they're using existing content and just giving headsets to kids in hospital. Kids that are in and out of hospital living with sickle cell, and it's being in and out of hospital is a huge part of their life. So again, being able to give them opportunities to travel the world through VR, whereas we're making our own content. So together we're going to collaborate and try to create something, a platform for young people in hospital and hospice to be able to access technology, and that, I guess, digital literacy and education for kids who are excluded from that. I work with young carers, and quite often they're missing a lot of school. They're not able to get to after-school activities. They might not have the equipment at home. So being able to support them in engaging with technology and increasing their sort of skills and experience and confidence in it as a skill for the future is really important.
Really important. I think that's one of the things, isn't it? Reflecting on some of the things we've spoken about today, but skills poverty, access to equipment, being left behind now as technology rapidly increases is even.
And it's so powerful if you are a child in a conflict area or in a, we work with very, very large refugee centres in Rwanda and other places. And, we're not hearing those stories, but, it's very powerful to be able to support somebody in being able to create something that the world can hear. And then, of course, being able to bring in, very accomplished composers or filmmakers or venues, being able to then share it at the British Museum or, in the V&A or, can attract media and attention and engagement. And suddenly we're all hearing somebody's story. So,
Brilliant. Any other final questions for Jennie? No problem. Thank you, Jennie. We've come to everyone's favourite part of the day. Ollie, are you going to give us good news? Lunch is ready. Fantastic. So we've got an hour lunch break now until 2:00. One final session from there with 3 more presentations, and then we finish today with a panel on the future of the creative industries led by Matt Peters. Thank you. See you in an hour.